Hi, I'm Alicia.
And I'm Robin, and you're listening to Bowel Moments,
the podcast sharing real talk about the realities of IBD. Served on the rocks. This week, we talked to Ben and Katie Portier, and we talked to them about navigating Ben's Crohn's disease through dating all the way to marriage. We talked to them about Ben's permanent ostomy and what that was like for them to get to know this new normal. We talked to them about the lifestyle balance that they found that works for them, that keeps them fun and social as a couple. Cheers.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Bowel Moments. This is Robin.
Hey, guys. This is Alicia, and we are really excited to be joined by a couple today. This is our first time trying to bring in two people who actually live together and like each other. So Katie and Ben, welcome to the show, and we are excited to see how this goes. But before we ask you anything about yourselves, what are you drinking?
I'm having some champagne.
Oh, I love it. Yay. We love bubbles.
I'm going my standard vodka water.
Just vodka and water. Wow. Yeah. That's straight up. All right. I like it.
Well, one of the reasons I used to really enjoy beer, but I completely, after I had surgeries, I got rid of carbonation. So I just don't do it anymore. So you get used to it after a while. It's an acquired taste. I made like the bitter beer face when I took my first sip, Right.
I suppose it depends on the quality of vodka as well. Cheap vodka is definitely going to give you the real ooh, man face.
Yeah, I don't do cheap vodka.
No.
Not if you drink it with water.
These days.
Yeah, it's only one or two brands and that's it.
Nice.
You can be picky about one thing, there's something that will make you feel bad the next day. That's what you will be picky about, right?
Yes,
that's right.
For sure. Robin, what are you drinking?
I am keeping it simple tonight and drinking cider. I did not give up carbonation after the surgeries, but I did go through a vodka and water phase. Yes. Alicia, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a margarita, but it's kind of a faux margarita because I just got back from a trip. And so there's nothing in my home. So I'm drinking a Spindrift margarita. Also, it's less calories and I am COVID fat. So we need to work on this.
You're COVID. Also, we are not sponsored by Spindrift, even though you have given them shout outs on the show. So
I'm totally going to tag them, Robin. I'm going to tag them to see if eventually they want to sponsor us.
If you're listening, Spindrift, we are accepting sponsorship.
Do you know who else
But the show is not about that. The show is not about that.
Do you know who else we love? Charmin. Work on this. Okay. Guys, again, super excited to have you on the show. Really excited to see what happens after that vodka's gone. So let's start out though. Next question for both of you is tell us your IBD story. And you guys are going to navigate this because you have separate stories that all link together. So tell us your IBD story however you want.
Okay. I guess it begins, I finished college in mid-November, roughly 2002. You're out of college, you don't have a job, you're moving home, kind of a lot of changes at that time. And I almost immediately, started dealing with stomach aches all the time, frequently going to the restroom. I didn't really think anything of it. And I finally found a job and went back to work. And one of the reasons I didn't go to the doctor is because back then your parents couldn't keep you on your insurance. As soon as you graduated school, you were dropped. So I didn't have insurance or anything like that. And so eventually I got a job and I still wasn't feeling good. I was living with my grandmother at the time. And she called one of my parents and, told them, because I wasn't really explaining to them what was going on, told them what was going on. And, they kind of gave me a parental nudging to go to the doctor. And I went to the doctor and at first they gave me medicine for an ulcer just to start off, and then immediately scheduled the colonoscopy and I had a colonoscopy. And finally, I think around May or June of 2003, I got diagnosed with Crohn's, just easy medicine, taking like Asacol and the steroids, you take the steroids, if you feel immediately better and, went on just living my life, really wasn't watching what I ate, things like that, taking my Asacol, probably not as I was supposed to, because you take so many pills so many times a day and it wasn't really helping. So I went on, I think for a year or two, I guess I was doing okay. And I get flares on and off. And I guess 2005, 2006, something like that. I don't remember. I started getting really sick. I had my own place at that point and got really sick, probably lost about 40 pounds, got hospitalized, steroids, another colonoscopy. Then got out of the hospital. Remicade was just coming out. So they did me a quick 3-4 dose treatment and stopped me. And from there, I, started going on again. And what we realized is before I started the Remicade, it was just chronic. I take the steroids, I'd be okay for 3 or 4 months, and then it slowly gets sick again. And I think a big part of all that was I had a very, for me, stressful. It was just a very fast paced, like constant demand job. It was like the job I had at the time. If you wanted to take vacation, it was always a bad time. It was one of those things. Can you wait? But the Remicade did help, and I took it for, oh gosh, I probably took it for 4 or 5 years. And then I ended up moving here. I had started dating Katie, and it was one of those things. We had been dating probably for a couple of years, about 2 years. It was one of those things, okay, if you want to see where your relationship goes, you can't live an hour away from each other. So I moved here, we got a place together. And over that time, I had switched jobs. I got laid off from one job, and I took a new job doing like some contracting work, and was doing really well. And just all of a sudden I could slowly, like at the beginning of my Remicade treatments, I felt a certain way. Then after 2 or 3 weeks, I feel okay. Then at the back end, I would start feeling bad. Went through all that, and that my health started depleting. I got engaged during that time, and we were planning our wedding, and they tried steroids, it wasn't working. They tried Humira did nothing, and kept going back and forth to the doctor. I can't tell you the amount of CAT scans I had to take. I must have taken 7, 8, and it was the miserable ones where they give you the contrast up the backside. And funny story is, at one point I went to my doctor and we were talking about this, and he's like, I didn't order that contrast, Ben. So the next time I went, they tried to give it to me again, and I said my doctor didn't order it. They said, well, the radiologist wants it. I was like, I don't care what the radiologist wants. I'm done. I've had enough. I was really, really sick. So it gets, I guess, into mid 2018. I got hospitalized like 2 or 3 times. There's a couple of very interesting situations that happened while I was hospitalized, not Crohn's related, but I guess patient care related, that I won't get into.
I'm just going to interrupt him real quick just to point out that he was on the Remicade and he was having those issues. But what actually happened is his body had a reaction to the Remicade, which kind of fueled the fire for what started to happen after that didn't help.
Right. I had a reaction to the medicine, and within 10 minutes of me starting to get the infusion, I just couldn't breathe. So they had to hurry up and stop it.
Honestly, the first time he ever went by himself.
First time I ever went to one of my treatments by myself, and that's what happened.
But he was very fortunate. He was in a room that there was attention
on
him,
nurse in there the whole time,
so it was meant that you were that you were there in that moment.
Yeah. So that happened, and that's when everything kind of started to get, from that point on, everything kind of went downhill very fast. So mind you, all this time I'm getting sick, we're planning a wedding. So we get to, we're planning the wedding, getting sick. And so we got married in September 2013. And my doctor had said, look, Ben, the medicines aren't working. You need to have surgery. And I kept trying to push it off because I didn't want to postpone our wedding. We had been planning it. It had been over a year planning. We didn't want to do that and redo everything. So I think in September when we got married, I'll never forget the night before our wedding, I was so horribly sick. It was so sick, and this is rare for me with my Crohn's. I was throwing up. That's how sick I was. I was eating maybe a meal every other day, and most of the time that meal was white rice. I'd eat like a lot of times with work, they'd order Chinese food. I said, y'all just give me an order of rice, and I would literally eat half a thing of rice, and that would last me for 2 days. Because anytime you ate, I just felt horrible, just absolutely horrible.
So it was definitely navigating what would be appealing to him. We weren't starving him, as it might sound like right now.
It was my choice, So after the wedding, we kind of waited a little bit longer, and, I got put on TPN, which, if anybody doesn't know TPN, it's like a long-term IV with a tube that's ran. They kind of put it in one of your veins on the inside of your arm, and a PICC line. Yeah. And they come pretty deep. So I was on that for probably 6 weeks, a month, where it basically gives you calories 24 hours a day because I couldn't eat. And during all this too, I'd started a new job. So this was all going on. I got started my new job within 2 weeks of getting married, doing all this, almost passed out of my wedding because I was so sick on the altar. And so kept going. And eventually, I had a doctor. I really liked him, but I felt the hospital wasn't giving him the support he needed with nurses and assistants, right? He was great. I loved him. I still see him every now and then. I have a good conversation with him. So I switched doctors and got a second opinion, and he was in agreement. And I'll never forget this. The one time I really, really started to get scared is I went to weigh myself, and I'm not the smallest person. I'm not the biggest. Like right now, I probably weigh 190 pounds, and I was bigger than this when I got really sick. I probably weighed like 205, 210. I went to the doctor, I weighed myself, and I weighed 123 pounds. So I literally lost 80 to 90 pounds. And that's when they put me on a TPN immediately. That scared me. I went through it, asking the doctors. They made me see infectious disease, the doctors, to make sure there was nothing else wrong with me. I literally asked the doctor, I was like, am I going to die? Because I didn't know. Because I was like, maybe I did this by not getting the surgery. Maybe I let it go too far. But that hadn't happened. So in February 17th, 2014, I got my colon removed. They just did it with the laser. It's not a big scar. And I remember I woke up that afternoon, and the next morning I felt like a new person. Like I felt fine. Like there was nothing. You were sore from having surgery, but I felt fine. I got Katie to record a video to send to my grandmother because she was really worried about me, along with everyone else in my family. And, I remember I sent it because I still watch the video to this day every year, and I sent it to her. And about 6 days later, so I had the surgery on a Monday. I think on the Sunday, I got discharged from the hospital. Katie was with me the whole time. And so I was in the bedroom, I had gone to sleep. I don't know what happened. I just started feeling bad. I wasn't having any output from my ostomy or anything like that. So I told Katie I was feeling really bad. And so we called the hospital like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and they told me to come in. So I go in the hospital, I'm there. At some point, they make me drink some stuff to do a CAT scan. I do the CAT scan. And I guess about 7, 8 o'clock at night, my doctor comes in and he says, you're gonna have to have another surgery. I was like, okay, when? He's like, you don't get it. It's like, you're having surgery now. It's like, wait, what? So he literally like signed the papers. He's handed the stuff off to Katie and like, you need to sign this now. Because what had happened is, I guess it was an abscess.
Yeah.
I started to have an abscess form. So, and this is where everything gets really fuzzy for me. But so they went in that night, they did the surgery, and I think I was in surgery. It took them like 3 or 4 hours just to find the abscess to be able to do the things. So I had surgery that night, and then I believe I was in the hospital.
We were in the hospital total for 20 days the first time.
So I was probably in there another 2 weeks after that. Had horrible anxiety attacks while I was in the hospital. And I didn't realize this. Having issues with anxiety, I never knew before. The doctor came in, he started asking me a bunch of questions, and every answer was like, yeah, oh, all the time. He's like, are you serious? Like, yeah. He's like, well, that's one of your problems. You're having anxiety attacks all the time. So went through, had the surgery. A couple months later, maybe 2-3 months, when I met Robin for the first time, because Katie did a lot of research as far as like support groups and like things like that to help, and met them. We started participating in CCFA, and it really was a big help starting to meet people who are dealing with the same things. Was the honored hero a year or 2 later, and they put me on Entyvio, and Entyvio has changed things. It's you don't feel bad. It's 30-minute thing. So I've been on that now for 8 years almost. And
he was one of the first.
And I think it was 2018, I had a third surgery. So what it was, my ostomy, my stoma itself just protrudes a lot. So that I got them to kind of try and do some repairs. That lasted maybe 9 months. And then I started having the same issues again. So I've just been dealing with that now. It hadn't been as bad with like COVID and things like that for then.
I think COVID for us, in a way, like I'm sure with a lot of people, but in a way it was when everyone was quarantined, you really kind of got to reset and recognize maybe certain triggers that were part of your everyday life that you didn't see it that way before, because you're a little bit more focused and not as much on the go, that we were able to really zone in on some things that were affecting him as well. I feel like you never know. It's just one something. And Ben has a bad habit of wanting to eat the same thing every day.
Yeah. It's easy.
So it doesn't help with identifying some of those triggers.
Right. And one thing with those, like, okay, most of us with Crohn's are lactose intolerant, right? I haven't had milk in years. Like if I accidentally drink coffee that has like creamer in it, like real creamer, I'll be sick for days. But I think we notice, like, even cheese, it's moderate. It was always just drinking milk, but even just cheese in moderation, or certain seasonings, or even like all our food has so many weird things in it now, is that we've really concentrated on finding foods with simple ingredients to make me feel better. There's so many little triggers that you don't realize you have, right? So I think, my long story short with my story, the biggest thing, it's a constant learning process. You don't just have a surgery or start taking medicine and all of a sudden you're better. That isn't how this works. Now, for some people it works. I know people who got diagnosed and they took medicine for a couple of years, never had a problem, quit taking their medicine and never had a problem again. And I know there's other people who are way worse than I was, and I feel for those people, because it's a miserable time and it's hard to explain like how you feel. They got the invisible disease that people say, but it's an embarrassing disease is the best way to put it, in my opinion, at least for me, because I get self-conscious about a lot of things, and that's hard for me. Is I find it very, even though I feel better and I'm happy, it's embarrassing for me, if that makes sense.
I do think that makes sense, because even Robin has talked about how things have even changed for her trigger wise for her disease as she has progressed through her illness. And so it does make sense that you're still discovering what works, what doesn't work for you as you go along. You fluctuated weight vastly. You have an ostomy, you had a PICC line for your TPN, and you have a new job. And you're getting to know people in this new city. What was it like socially and work-wise for you to be going through all of this and getting to know all these people and getting married and being in pictures? That's a lot of pressure.
So I was lucky at the job I was at, the contract job, before I took the job, right before I got married. My boss's daughter, I forget, she either had UC or Crohn's. So he was very understanding. And if I needed to take time off, he let me. They knew I had to go get my medicine. Nothing was said.
He was really a true gem to meet, because it was relatable and gave Ben a lot of resources that we didn't know about before, specifically when it came to
grant
programs and Remicade. When they found out how long he had been on it, Remicade wanted to help him as much as they could for paying with his medicine. Unfortunately, he wasn't on the program for very long before he had the allergic reaction to it. But it was wonderful to even find out that there's resources like that, because that was something that we didn't know about before and that Ben had never been told.
Yeah. And, the funny thing is, I started my new job, and I still, to my boss brings this up still, is I would always say when I first started working there, it's like, this isn't me. This isn't who I am. It's like, I just really don't feel good, and I, in a way, I felt I was blessed that they hired me looking at me, because it's not like you look at me and don't think I was sick, you know what I mean? And they were really good about it. But there's some people now that I still work closely with who've told me, it's like, Ben, I didn't want to go into meetings with you because if I was sick, I was scared I was going to make you sick. Like, they thought I was going to die. Some people I worked with told me that, so you have all these people who do the different things. And, I'm lucky. I think for the most part, most of my friends, social settings, people understood, because there's a lot of stuff we missed out on. We didn't do just because I was tired. I didn't feel good. And I just couldn't do it. I just physically couldn't do it. I mean, towards the end, before my surgery, I'd literally wake up, I'd go to work, I'd come home, and I'd sleep until Katie got home. And usually Katie would make supper, we'd eat supper, and I'd go back to sleep, so there wasn't like me helping around the house, it fell all on Katie at that point in time, you know what I mean? So I feel in a way I was very blessed and very lucky for the people who I was surrounded with to help me during that time period, because it was a lot. It could get overwhelming. It definitely could get overwhelming.
Yeah, I can see it's intimidating to be party to that. And I know it must feel difficult for somebody like you who wants to be part of that process and wants to, pull your weight, and you can't really do it physically. I know it's really challenging. My dad had multiple sclerosis, and the times that he would get sick, like, he really struggled because he was the breadwinner. He was the tough guy, and he couldn't be that anymore. And so it was real hard for him.
It's something I don't think I've ever dwelled on. It's like, it's something that's always in the back of your mind, right? Because it does affect you. And like, when I finished college, I always had a dream of like moving to Colorado back then, Colorado Springs. I had a friend who moved there and he loved it. And I wanted to try it out and go. But I mean, it changed everything. I mean, I'm happy where I am now. I love my job. I love what I do for a living. I work for a great company with great people.
And you love your wife?
Absolutely. I live by the rule, happy wife, happy life. You know that. And it changed it, but it's like, you always wonder what if, but you can't live with a regret of it because you have no control of it either. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is hard though, because I'm sure there are times where you go, gosh, this, what would my life have been like? Obviously less rich because you wouldn't have met Katie, but I'm sure it's it's tough.
Right. Well, literally, Katie grew up 6 blocks maybe from
Yeah.
where I lived, and we met at a mutual. So one of her best friend's cousin is my
Oh gosh,
my
this is gonna
cousin's.
sound so
They got a
hello.
huge family, so family
It's fine. It's
family
fine.
cousin relation. One of the cousins got married, and they're all out, and we all went out. And
Okay, let me back
after,
up and explain this a little bit better for you. So my best friend since I was 8 and Ben's first cousin. So it's mutual cousins. Okay. So they're one family, Ben's family on the other side. My best friend's little brother got married in very, very small wedding. And so all of the cousins went out after the wedding.
and when
to
they
celebrate.
say cousins, they're probably talking about 100. It's a huge family on that side.
And so we walked in the place where we met,
Yeah,
which there was drinking involved, as we're doing now.
it was a bar.
And Ben and I met that night, and everyone was completely shocked that we had never met before because we know so many of the same people. And we met, and that was kind of a wrap.
Yeah,
We've been together ever since.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cute. I did
know,
have
I
a
love
minute
it.
though where I was like, wait, are you guys cousins?
No,
What's
no,
happening?
sometimes I'm bad at
no.
explaining things.
I didn't think so, but I was like, let's maybe back up a
I
second.
mean,
Make sure we got that right.
We are all from Louisiana, but Alicia, I mean.
We're not from North Louisiana.
Oh no, calling them out.
It's kind of like it's close to Arkansas, you know?
Oh dear. Well, sorry, Northern Louisianans.
I went to school there.
My maiden last name and his last name definitely couldn't be any further from the family tree, that's for sure.
Okay, I have questions because I remember meeting you for the first time and
Walk up the stairs.
up the stairs with a walker. And I mean, I cried and I didn't even know you, but it was just such a feeling of like me understanding where you were at that time, like personally having been there and then seeing someone else in that same situation. Like it was hard for me to see and I didn't even know you guys yet. So Katie, I want you to share whatever you feel comfortable with, but Ben was already not feeling well when you met, right? Like he had started in that flare. So what was that like for you as his care partner, like watching him go through that, or how did you manage? How did you handle that part of it? I'm not asking these questions, right? Maybe I need more cider, you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And I also am curious how he told you. At what point in your relationship did he tell you about his disease and how did he do it?
I would think very early on, just because of different medications that he was on that he had to take, and it was imperative. I didn't really particularly know what Crohn's was before I met him. I'd heard of diverticulitis and things of that nature, but I didn't particularly know what Crohn's was. We tried to maximize our time as much as we could whenever we would get to see each other on the weekends, and sometimes that would correlate when he'd have a treatment. And at the time he was driving to Thibodeau to get his treatments. And so I would come in town and go with him to the treatments just to kind of know more about it. And just the more that we were around each other, I think is the more that I started to realize how truly sick certain things would make him, you know?
Ups and downs.
I don't think until we moved in together and our worlds kind of merged, did I realize some of his eating habits probably weren't the best with helping him health-wise. That's something that we've always kind of tried to work on. I'm not saying that I'm like the biggest health nut, but I definitely lived a way different lifestyle than Ben did at the time. And I think whenever we moved in together and I really started to see some of the patterns is whenever I could help him maybe pinpoint better some things to talk to the doctor about. Do you think that kind of explains?
I think so. And I mean, I'll be honest, Katie did tons and tons of research research for things to figure things out that I don't know if I did why. I just didn't do it all.
So, I mean, it kind of
know?
lit a fire for me. I was present with him whenever he would go to the doctor. I never wanted him to feel alone in it. Unfortunately, there was that one time that he did go alone and he had the reaction, and that was super scary. And, you know, kind of like from that moment on, it was like, okay, well, we're going to make sure somebody is readily available and can be there in the case that something like that happens again. Unfortunately, with that one, for instance, it kind of sent him into a spiral of not being well.
I didn't take medicine for months.
Not having the medicine, his body really started to work against him. And that was probably the hardest thing to watch, was him wanting the medicine for him to feel better and not getting a reaction probably as urgently as there should have been. I definitely encouraged him to seek out other doctors. We kind of didn't know where to go with that. He had seen the same doctor at Ochsner's for quite some time.
Loved them.
And like I said, we adored him, but we just weren't getting the patient support. And I felt like it was a struggle and an added stress that, you know, no one with Crohn's needs added stress, especially whenever it comes to a doctor situation. I was working downtown. I was working retail at the time for a bigger company. And I had a lot of colleagues that, you know, would check in on Ben. They knew Ben. They could see what I was going through and how I was managing time and the stress of how sick he was getting. And I had this one name that kept coming to me. And it wasn't just from coworkers, it was complete strangers that, you know, I connected with that were customers. And it was just, the name just kind of kept resurfacing. And by the fourth or fifth time, I still get chills talking about it. By the fourth or fifth time, I came home that night and I said, we have to go and see this doctor. I don't know. Ben was so terribly sick by this point, and they had prolonged, you know, the inevitable of him having to have the surgery. So unfortunately, by the time that we did get to go and see the doctor that came so highly suggested to us, Ben was so sick that when he took one look at Ben, and he just shot him straight and told him that he was going to have the surgery. We were in a very fortunate situation that he was personal friends with Ben's surgeon. And I would say he's probably one of the biggest Crohn's advocates, as, you know, like doctor wise, that I've met in this area. And he's completely charismatic. He just really took a liking to Ben. And I felt like that's what Ben needed in that moment, you know?
Yeah. Look, I love my doc. I really did love my doctor. I've been lucky with all my doctors. I love my doctor at Ochsner's. I just felt Ochsner's didn't give him the support he needed. Like when he wanted to give me medicine and orders and stuff, it's like I'd call and he'd be like, Ben, I turned that in. I don't understand.
We just had to seek out a real doctor's, back to the old school, a real doctor's office that, you know, a little bit smaller scale, personal, you know, one-on-one attention with the people even that's working for them. I mean, support staff is huge.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you have to call and get refills for medicine or navigate making appointments, you know, dealing with insurance, any of it. Ben had a lot of struggles at other hospitals that we went to with even his billing and his payments. And, you know, fortunately, my mom was a medical coder for 20 plus years, and she kind of knew some of those key words and different ways for Ben to seek out the answers to get, you know, him over that's a huge stress for someone to not only have to deal with their disease, but to also have to stress themselves about paying for what they need to make them feel somewhat better, you know?
And if you're taking biologics, it's a lot of money. It just is. I mean, it's a car note every month for medicine. And that's just one medicine. That's nothing else you're taking. That's not vitamins, anything else, right? That's one medicine. Like my medicine I take now, if I had to pay for it, I mean, you're talking about $400 or $500 every month just to keep up.
So I would say, you know, we were very fortunate in the aspect of our insurance at the time when Ben was, you know, I know that the timing on that was actually
a blessing.
It was a huge blessing for us that we didn't have to worry about much of that part of it. Now, you know, navigating how sick he was, and being in the hospital for 20 days and a lot of discouragement, a lot of things that we had to miss out on or say no to, are just the want to do something and know it wasn't possible. Even when we were in the hospital and I could tell that Ben kind of, was losing some of his mojo, some of his spirit, the whole time we were in there, I just kind of kept reiterating that we had to pay it forward. We had to find a way to be connected to people, because I had to seek out most of the information for myself. And in 2013, 2014, there really weren't a lot of resources like people think that there are. I mean, I read an entire book about the ins and outs of exactly what his surgery was going to be like. I don't recommend that for everyone. It's not for the faint at heart. But I mean, if you kind of want to know what to expect, I feel like sometimes they're a little vague with telling you, or it all comes at you at one time. So you're not absorbing what's really, what the steps afterwards are. And,
Yeah, I read nothing. I didn't.
He couldn't face it. He still couldn't face what was happening in a way, that it was too hard for him to look at it like that.
You feel, in a weird way, you feel like you're losing something, right? You feel like you've lost your freedom due to the disease in the first place, because it hamstrings you with like using the restroom and things you can eat, things like that. But when you have the surgery and you have to, in a weird way, even though like I'm healthy now, my life still revolves around Crohn's, and what I do revolves around Crohn's. Now, look, I'll be first to admit, sometimes I use Crohn's as an excuse to not go do things I don't want to do. Absolutely. I mean, I'll say it.
100% you should do that. I always say that I'm stuck with this disease. I'm going to use it to my benefit sometimes. I support this 100%.
Right. So,
yes.
But it's not many things, it might be around some people I don't want to be around. So that's a good excuse, but it's true.
So to speak to what Robin said about when she met us, that's kind of where it came from. When we were in the hospital, just kind of, I always tried to be encouraging and never let him see me sweat, because I never wanted him to feel like something was going tragically wrong, just because he felt that way. I mean, a lot of it comes at you at once, and it's hard to take it in. And there's a lot of things that he doesn't remember from that time. And I'm like, good, I'm glad you don't, let me just relive the story for you in bits and pieces. You don't need all the details. But it was really important that, and I had found that there was a walk. I had found that take steps. And I said, so we're going to, there's so many people that have already been interested in following your journey, through this, that I feel like we can get a team together and do the walk, and let's go and do the outing. Let's do the introductory party. Like, if you feel good enough that you feel like we can go, let's go. Like, we haven't gone anywhere in months.
Yeah.
And so we came up the stairs and we met Robin, and it was a hit from there on out. I mean, to see Ben in that situation, just to be around other people.
Yeah. I had to learn how to live in a social environment again, like be sociable with people, how to learn how to have a drink somewhere, even though we probably shouldn't drink because of Crohn's, but we all have our vices, right? It's like you're really relearning in a way how to live.
And I think we both had to encourage each other to do things like that, because you fall into and I'm sure there's a lot of people now that, we've all had to kind of experience the shutout. There's a lot of people now that, they're probably dealing with the same thing, just in a different way. And Ben had his second surgery a few years ago, and we were very hopeful that was going to, be as promised and just go smoothly and no big deal. And I don't think I really realized until we had that second round of surgery that truly everybody's body is so different that like there is no answer that they can give you. They can give you guidance. And I think a lot of people, we were guilty of it, but a lot of people take to heart kind of what they tell you is going to happen. And
You
I
don't think you're against
realized
the norm. You think you're the norm.
I realized the second time around that there's no surefire answer for anyone, especially with this disease, that everyone's body is so different in how it's going to react to the simplest thing that they think is a surefire thing, maybe not for you or the next person,
When I had the third surgery, they said, oh, once you have surgery on a Thursday or a Friday, I forget which day it was, you'll be going home the next day. A week later, I was still in the hospital. I got discharged. I had to go to the emergency room.
And I was speaking the second surgery, but I was actually talking about third. I guess I compiled 1 and 2.
It was just one. It was one big doctor.
One big continuous surgery.
Yeah. And and here's the thing, like, I don't know everybody's story. So mine might be a very common story. Our story might be very common. I don't know, you don't really know because, I know everybody goes through what they go through, but, you hear things about like people have heart issues or people, unfortunately, who have cancer issues. And look, that's affected us and my family, Katie's family in a way. And that stuff's always talked about, right? But Crohn's and, gastrointestinal and UC stuff and IBD, it's not talked about like that because it's the embarrassing thing to have in a way, right? So I think that's the thing.
I feel like there's a good way to flip it though, from embarrassing to just making people more aware.
Right.
Not that you're proud of it, but maybe just bringing more awareness, because I can guarantee you more people than you think know someone that has it or can relate, even if it was a friend, knowing that they had to miss out. Oh, they couldn't come because they weren't feeling well. Well, that's probably why. I just feel like there's a stigma to it, but I've seen so much growth in it personally, just different people I follow and reading different things that, I just feel like there's so many different platforms now. And there's often times that I will see something and Ben's not a huge social media tech savvy kind of guy, but I'll definitely, when I see something come across my Instagram or I start getting into the clicks and looking at different things, I'm like, oh, you definitely need to follow this person and read their story, or, just finding things more relatable where there wasn't many resources in anything relatable before.
I feel like even if your story is like the norm, like you said, even if that is the case, there's value in sharing it so that people do understand that it is the norm. I don't think that it is the norm. I mean, it's pretty traumatic and dramatic. I was also in the hospital. I was in the hospital for 21 days. So when you just said 20 days, I'm like, when I saw you guys walk in, it really was like a gut punch for me. And I'm glad you let me talk you into sticking around and being a part of it. And
it's helped a lot, for me, it has, we've met some great people and, we've had the opportunity to help other people and talk to, and, Katie's had the opportunity to help multiple people's spouses. And I think that's wonderful. And one thing I've noticed is like the ladies can talk. It's like the guy, I've noticed my things, guys are kind of very short about talking about it. We internalize it in a way, right? But like Katie's talked to Robin, I can't tell you the amount of people you've referred to Katie that she's helped, And if you can help someone get through something that what it's like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not a pat on the back or anything, but you need to say, hey, at least I helped someone, right?
Pay it forward.
Yeah.
Katie, I'm curious, what were some of the most common questions that you got from these other spouses?
I would say it was more sharing kind of experiences and how to deal with it. A lot of people definitely wanted to know what the surgery was going to be like and who did you speak to for this, that, and the other, even just navigating even what to eat, triggers that maybe weren't helping or working against, or something maybe that they should try. One of the first people that Robin actually introduced me to, that's probably been the longest relationship with someone. We still follow each other on Facebook, and, they have 2 children now. And, it's just been a great experience to see them grow and see her partner at the time. We had a very similar story where they had been dating for a very long time. And her friends were kind of like, why do you want to be with someone that can't go anywhere with you, basically? And she knew she didn't want to give up on him, which, I mean, she loved him. I mean, you shouldn't. Yeah. And I just you have to flip it sometimes and say, okay, is this what your friends want, or is this what you want? And if you truly care about someone, you have a lifetime to have experiences together. It's just part of the hump to get over. I just feel like, it helps to have somebody you can relate to in situations more than anything. And I would say that most of those connections have just been relatable connections. I kind of share most of our story first, and then it usually falls into play with what people feel comfortable sharing back.
Right. Makes sense.
But, like I said, going back to, I didn't have a lot of people to relate to. So to me, it's so important to be, if I can be that person, even to a stranger, I feel like, that gives me a good feeling, but then I'm like invested, like you have to follow up with me and let me know what's happening too,
But being invested lets them know that you're being genuine, you know what I mean? Which I think anyone appreciates that, okay, these people really want what's best for me or for their partner or whoever they're with,
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question just about, this is probably way off topic, but when you were talking, it popped in my head. So I met my husband, like almost 10 years into my diagnosis. And so I was feeling pretty good when we met, but obviously there's been lots of roller coaster rides since then. But in social situations, we have this thing to allow us to get back out, because he's like very sociable guy and I could be a recluse. Like I could 100% be a recluse just because,
we're like you, we're the opposite.
Not feeling. So there's a signal though, like if I'm not feeling well, or if like it's time to go, like no questions asked. There's no like, oh, but I wanted to stay longer or anything like that. Like in order for us to be able to be in situations like that, I have to be able to have that easy exit, like in case I'm not feeling well. And like having him be 100% on board with that and being willing to just be like, okay, like when you're not ready to go, like we have to go and it's not like a big deal. Do you guys do something like that? Because I mean, I follow you on social media. You are out and about.
We look a lot more sociable than really are.
We go to like 3 places. We go to like one buddy's house, bar down the street from his house, when we walk to his house, and like family's house. But
sometimes we're at these things and I'm like, how did we even get invited here?
Yeah. I think so. I mean,
I can look at Ben and know. Let's just say that. I don't really need much of a sign.
If I'm by myself, not talking, I'm kind of quiet. Kate, she knows it's time.
If the mood kind of gets, I can tell by his fidgets.
Yeah.
Without him saying, and and sometimes there are times that I am really having a good time, and let's say it's my group of friends versus his. He definitely doesn't want to be like, come on, let's go. He'll kind of give me the like.
Sometimes
he'll either suck it up or he'll
like,
say,
"You'll stay. I'll Uber home.
I'll come back and get you," or or just take an Uber home.
You got to find a balance and all that stuff, right? So like literally sometimes, I mean, I haven't felt bad from my disease since I had my surgery, so I've been lucky in the last 8 years, almost 9 actually, 8.5, that, I haven't felt bad. So I'll suck it up and be like, all right, yeah, I'll stay. Or, the biggest thing that happens to us socially, and it's the most frustrating thing for me with all of it at this point, is dealing with the bags, right?
I would say that more than social things, I'd say there's probably opportunities to do adventurous or beachy or pool type of things that Ben is a little bit more hesitant.
I don't take my shirt off anyway.
If it's unless it is someone that really has been there for our journey, which is, I would say a great group of people, but sometimes it limits you. And then there's questions. A lot of our friends have kids, and some of our close friends, their kids are inquisitive.
And this one in particular she's referring to, he is
very,
I love him to death. He's one of my little buddy, and he's just so smart. And like, so he calls it my bean bag.
He named it his bean bag.
I love that so much.
And he asks about it every time I see him. He asks, and actually a couple of nights ago we went over to their house and they like barbecued, and so we went hang out. And the first thing he did when he saw me is he touched my bean bag just to check in. He just
kind of held his hand gently on it, and
he's just a very sweet, extremely intelligent kid. You can already tell, and he wants to know, he's inquisitive,
Mhm.
But in those situations, I'll always try and explain to Ben, I'm like, most people have insecurities, and that, maybe elevates some of it for you a little bit. And we do avoid some of those situations, but I mean, I wouldn't see anyone being like, why does that guy have a wrap around his waist? And, that's one of the things that I told him when he first got it is, look, I've been in the fashion industry all of my life. If there's going to be a way for you to keep it all together or conceal it, I'm your gal. You've got somebody to help you with that. Don't worry about that.
I get anxiety from it. I do. I will get myself worked up. And that's one thing. My trigger is stress with Crohn's. It is absolutely stress. That's a huge trigger for me. And I get myself worked up. So what I've learned is so I could tell you, I've been in a pool, since I had a surgery, I've been in a pool twice, and I've been in the water off a boat once. So 3 times. I can tell you when they happened, and they've all happened in the past 3 years. And everyone knows I had the surgery. Everyone knows what's going on. But for me, I guess it's an internal thing for me, because they don't care. They're all our friends. They're Katie's best friends. They all know they're my best friends.
I tell Ben often,
they all know.
To have this one change, but see you gain so much of your quality of life overall back. Like, is that one little bit of being self-conscious worth it? To see him happy and living life again, to me, yes, it's worth it. I tell them not to be ashamed of it, don't be ashamed. I mean, look at how much further it's gotten you with feeling better overall,
And it is, I try not to be, I really take her advice, but I'll be honest too, the first thing, anytime there's a picture of me and it's like, it shows my whole body, the first thing I do is look at my midsection and where my stoma is. It's just a natural thing for me, because I've always been very self-conscious, right? And I try not to be that way, but it just happens. Like, I'll intentionally take a picture where the side that my stoma is on, I want that to be away from the picture, if that makes sense.
Well, welcome to a woman's world.
Yeah.
I will say that the guest that we interviewed just a couple of weeks ago also talked about body image and, being self-conscious about the way that he looks, and, if he's lost a lot of weight because of it, or if he's gained weight because of being on steroids, or, all of those things. And I think that is a lot more common for guys than they are willing to admit or talk about. So I really thank you for sharing that on the show. I mean, I feel like it is something that needs to be shared, and people need to understand that it's not just them that feels that way. Like, there are more of you out there that feel this way than we know.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't think I'm out of the norm when it comes to feeling that way, especially with this,
And applause to all of the people that have figured out a way to conceal and swim and be active. I mean, I think that was one of Ben's things, how am I going to work out with this? You try the tight t-shirt or the compression and different things. Like I said, we're always reinventing the wheel and figuring it out. And
I was Robin who led us to the stealth belt.
Yeah.
No, I have 6 or 7 of them, one for every day of the week. It does. It makes a huge difference.
It makes a difference.
It does.
To have some things available that, you don't have to figure out on your own, that it's truly made for what you're needing it for too,
Yeah, especially living down here, it's just so hot and so humid, and all of it's strange too. Cause one thing I've learned is not just what you eat. If you we're used to a humid climate down here, right? If I go someplace, we went on a trip, we went to Las Vegas and we were in California where it's really dry, where you don't have that humidity. It's a pain in the butt to figure out how you do your plies, your ostomies, because your body's used to that moisture, and so they don't last, So it's stuff like that when you travel that you have to be wary of. That I didn't think about anything like that till I was experiencing it. I mean, we're in Las Vegas, and me and Katie were trying to figure out a way how I could get supplies to me in Las Vegas in case something happened.
The dry climate did something
to my skin. It wouldn't stick to my skin.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things, I think, dealing with the stoma and the bag situation that I always feel like you almost have to reinvent the wheel a little, because your body changes, the climate changes. I don't know if you guys hear that from other people necessarily, but I definitely, it's hot, this is something that's sticking to your body. You kind of have to be patient with yourself, that you're going to have struggles when it's hot and humid,
Absolutely. Makes a difference.
I will tell you this, that having an ostomy ostomy 20 plus years ago and then having one again last year, I was so disappointed that there weren't more advancements made in the ostomy technology. I thought for sure that there had to be something. So
It's kind
anybody
of
out there who's an inventor, I mean,
Right.
there's an opportunity here.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like sometimes Ben runs into situations where they're taking things away.
Yeah, like your insurance company quits. Oh, we're not going to pay for that anymore. So like for me, so I put my bag on, I use the elastic barrier strips. So we got new insurance in January, so they're paying for it again, which is great. But our old insurance, it like I put the barrier strips because what's happening when your stomach gets swollen, it just pushes, right? It just pushes, so it separates and breaks that seal. So I need the barrier strips because if not, when that seal breaks, you don't have any time. You know what I'm saying? So they quit paying for it, saying they're like, oh, you don't need it, you can't have it, and it becomes such a frustrating issue because y'all don't know who I am and how I'm living, right? I think I have a much better idea of what I need to take care of this every day than you do.
Robin, why do you feel like that there hasn't been advancements? Do you have any take on?
I feel like there's not enough people that are living
Bring
with
them out
ostomies.
enough.
There's not enough demand, right? There's not enough need for it
Profit in it.
to make
That's the problem.
changes. Yeah.
There's probably a lot more people, I would guess, that it's a temporary thing. And so they're not actually living with it
Right.
day to day, that it's temporary. So they push through it. Yeah. I would love to see the same.
I do wonder how many companies that make these types of supplies also have people on staff who live with ostomies, because my husband is a chemist and he worked for a company that would make these types of products. And I don't know that he knew anybody who worked in these different industries that had an ostomy or lived with an ostomy or even knew somebody living with an ostomy.
You have so many smart, creative people. If they actually had someone that could sit down with them and explain, it seems like they have the people available to do it. Like I still use the same bag from when I had my first one that I got at home. And I've tried other ones, but I felt like none of the new stuff works compared to the oldest one. And I did find during COVID, the quality of the bags absolutely went down, but I find it's getting better now. But for that year and a half, 2 years, they weren't doing the quality control.
We had difficulty during Ida when we realized that we were going to be gone as long as we had to be. Ben, just to be on the safe side, he had to end up ordering supplies. And when he called them, they were like, well, your insurance isn't going to pay for this.
I don't care.
Well,
I don't have a
guess
choice.
what? Like, we still need this. So take whatever you need to get it to us. I also feel like seeing situations in the hospital, there's definitely not an understanding with a lot of, not all, but a lot of nurses to even know what to do with that, how to care for it, how to clean it, and when you're out of it, you almost have to have someone else there with you to assist because there's several people in the medical field that have no idea how to even care for that.
It was months. I couldn't tell you. It might have been 3, it might have been 6. I don't remember. Before I could even change my bag myself. Like most of the time I had to lay down on something and Katie would do it for me. So imagine going back to work and this would happen. We would literally both have to leave work, come home, do all that stuff and go back. And that's before I learned, hey, what foods are my triggers? What foods cause certain things like with the stomach? Because it's a learning process. You have to learn your stomach and how your body treats each one. Some stuff will make your more solid. Some things make it solid. Some stuff will make it soft. Like coffee will do this, water will do this, carbonation will do this. And it's a process. And if I could tell anybody one thing, realize this is a process. You might get lucky and figure it out in 6 months, but I don't think you will, because our bodies change as we age, no matter what. You have an extra cherry on the cake, right? And it's constantly changing, so you're not going to figure it out right away.
Notice he said cake because he can't have ice cream.
No.
It's true. I want you to not feel weird talking about this. We talk about this stuff all the time. And Stacy, who was one of our first guests who just had J-pouch surgery, we were on the phone all the time right after the first surgeries when we both had ostomies. Like, what does your output look like? What did you eat? What made it feel that way? Like, how are you staying hydrated? I drank pickle juice for a couple of weeks after surgery because I was so dehydrated. I needed the salt and I couldn't drink like the electrolyte light drink, they made me feel bad. So I drank pickle juice.
Oh my goodness.
It was what I needed to help me stay hydrated because I was so dehydrated. That's one of the things with the ostomy, especially living in hot humid climates, you can get dehydrated, and it depends on what your output looks like, right? If your output is loose or runny, then you're more likely to be dehydrated. So then you have to find out what foods are making you feel that way. It is exhausting.
You're performing a constant experiment on yourself.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
in a way, it's like, so after I had my third surgery, I'd eat like a BLT or something. And when I say BLT, I don't eat the lettuce.
Or the
never been
tomato.
lettuce. Or, well, no,
A bacon sandwich.
I was, and I didn't realize this, even like a sliver of tomato with the skin. Like I never dealt with that till after I had the third surgery. It's like, all right, well, this causes me problems. It's like French fries, which, the skin on the French fries gives you issues. It's like literally at this point, I eat meat, rice, and potatoes, and like cookies, brownies, and cake.
Which is probably the worst with the
That's
sugar.
it. That's all I eat.
It's
Like,
not the worst. No,
it's
if
like-
you can tolerate it, you can tolerate it.
yeah, that's where it becomes difficult for people. Like, okay, you try and be healthy, right? Well, in the grand scheme of things, we're the complete opposite of anything healthy you have to eat. So how do you go about living a healthy lifestyle when everything you're supposed to eat, even though it's real food, you're not eating like processed stuff, is rice, potatoes, and meat? I eat no fruits and no vegetables. Now I know you can do all this and cook them and peel the skin off and take out the seeds. I don't have time for all that. I'm not doing all that. It's too much effort for me.
Are you sure that
personally.
would be your task, or would it be mine?
I think it'd be too much for either one of us because we're both competitive with it.
Well, I mean, I feel I didn't eat fruit except for bananas for over 20 years until this last surgery. And Stacy got me trying smoothies, and I was able to tolerate it that way. But I hadn't had fruit in 20 plus years.
The funny thing about smoothies and shakes is, the first thing you think is that's going to go right through me. And, Ben went through a phase that he was doing a lot of shakes and stuff, and it's almost soothing.
Yeah.
More than you would think, it's soothing on your digestive.
And I was doing it. I really enjoyed them. And I quit because that's when after my third surgery, when it went back to what it was doing, is the only thing we could think of. Like, I know I can't eat blueberries. And,
we had to slowly cut
and
it
like
out.
Greek yogurt.
Seeds,
so
though.
I was making them with Greek yogurt. I know Greek yogurt is made from milk, but it never gave me an issue before. So a lot of this stuff, I assumed maybe I can have it, but because my stoma is still the same way a year and a half later, but it's something I've cut out. So it's hard for I'm sure it's hard for your husband, Rob, and other people, because like I don't eat many different things.
I jump at the chance any time that we get takeout to get a salad.
Yeah.
I jump at the chance.
I mean, I'd love to be able to eat a salad, but I can't. It's not worth it. Even like potatoes, like a sweet
Sorry,
potato.
all fellow listeners that miss a salad. Ben does too.
It gets boring after a while, and I think that's a hard thing. And for me, I can eat the same thing all the time, but for everyone else, it's hard for them. You know what I mean?
Have you all had anybody with solutions that have worked for them with nutrition and diet, or
Working with a dietitian?
yeah? Well, I mean, we've gone that route before, and
They tell you anything.
we got really discouraged because I almost knew more about what Crohn's patients aren't supposed to have versus what she did.
Yeah, there are more dietitians now that are familiar with IBD and specialize in IBD, but that's like a very recent development. It's been many years in the making. We've talked about it a lot on this show. You really have to find somebody who knows what IBD is. Stacy, who's been on the show, is an RD, and she said, as a patient going through school, like they don't teach you about Crohn's and colitis, in dietetic school. It's kind of counterintuitive, really, because it kind of goes against the protocols offer a lot of other diseases. I have bad news. We've been talking for an hour.
I know.
We've been on the call for a little bit longer, but recording for an hour. So it's time for our last question. What is the one thing that you would want the IBD community to know or to take away from our conversation?
I think for me, thinking about it over all this time, is that it's a process. This is 20 years for me, and I'm still learning every day. Our body changes, our life changes. It's a constant process. Ask questions, do your research. Like, there's more stuff I wish I would have done when I was young about research. I don't regret things I've done, but I know there's things I could have done that would have made this better. Like, if I'd have left my stressful job at a lot younger age, it would have been better, but I wouldn't be where I am today. And I think that's the thing. Get some perspective, like take a step back and get a perspective, because I've had times where this was woe is me, but there's people in my family who went through way worse stuff than I did. Another thing is appreciate the people who love you and have your back and who are there for you, because it's not easy on them either. It's weird saying that, but also it's sometimes you have to be selfish in the fact that you can't do things. It's fun in the balance and all that, I think.
Yeah, I'm going to say the same, kind of to what Ben said, that, I think having a support system and having people that you can talk to is tremendously helpful. Having not only a support system in your personal life, but in your doctor life, in your professional life, just surrounding yourself with positivity and knowing that not each day is going to be the same. And I mean, I know that every person has everyday struggles, but yours look a little different when you have a chronic illness. And I just think that it's navigating it and, having someone there for you that is going to encourage you when you're feeling discouraged. I really think being around uplifting people, I always like to try and look at the positive in things. And, sometimes, I tell Ben a lot that maybe it's just God's plan of getting it all out of the way now so you can have a better situation later, and it's just believing that and living that positive lifestyle and just keeping it one day at a time moving forward.
Positive thinking does make a difference.
Great advice, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much. It was really such a pleasure hearing your story and getting to know you. We really appreciate you being so open and honest with your relationship and everything that happened in between. So thanks so much. And we're going to end the show by saying cheers.
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 If you liked this episode, please rate, review, subscribe, and even better, share it with your friends. Cheers.